right, this module went off the rails. Commitment and consistency. Super important one. We see it in our everyday lives, and it's something that you can use today to start getting people to a yes. It's something you could use today at work, today in school. It's one of the most important ones and one of the most powerful ones. And it was mostly wrong, 90% incorrect. So let's move on. First thing we're going to talk about is content and statistics. All right, first thing is our slides. I can check how many people clicked and viewed them. Our videos, I can check to see how many views there were. Canvas, I can check individually how much time somebody has spent on something. And it's been pretty low throughout. And I made a comment like a month ago. However, when I see that I can track all these things and I see that there was about uh, 13 people out of 70 students that watched a particular video, or there were 9 who accessed a slide deck, right? When I see that, and then I see 90% of the students got commitment and consistency wrong, then it's like, all right, let's step back and let's try and revisit this and get everybody back on board. So bottom line is I can see this stuff. And if you're getting everything wrong, I think it's time to like say, you know what? I'm going to step up and I'm going to start looking at this content. Hey, if we're going to talk about content, let's go to our book. I can't track that, by the way. Our book is awesome. There's a reason why it was a bestseller. There's a reason why it's been chosen for this course over and over and over again. It's because it's interesting. It's influential. It's persuasive, right? It does a really good job of getting things across to us that are interesting. But how does it do it? It does it in a manner that are stories throughout every single paragraph with every principle of persuasion. The book has these stories so you can get a gist of something right at any time. You don't have to sit down for 2 hour reading and get out your pen and paper and maybe get some reading glasses, put them down at the bottom of your nose. No, you sit down for a couple minutes and read a story. So commitment and consistency right here. It opens up with a story about people who are betting on horses. All right, super interesting. And then it goes along and talks about some people in New York City who were set up in a scenario where somebody next to them was robbed and how they interact with it. I'm not going to tell you, go read it in the book. It's like 3 paragraphs. You're going to walk away from those 3 paragraphs with an aha moment. And it was entertaining. It was interesting. Just in this chapter, there is story after story after story. And to weave all those stories together is some academic writing, which makes it really digestible and interesting. So the book, it's great book. So grab it. It's something you could put on your coffee table. Do you have a coffee table? You can put it on your nightstand, night table, whatever that thing next to your bed is called. You could put it there. You could throw it in your backpack. It is something that's really, really helpful. And you could just, boom, read it at a glance. And it's something where you could tell these stories at different get-togethers. And people be like, that's pretty interesting. Hey, President Crow just recently gave a speech with an article of vice versa, and it was basically around AI. Use AI, go forth and be bold. He didn't say go forth and be lazy. He said go forth and be bold, right? It's a new era for us. So dive into it and use it, but don't be lazy about it. So let me tell you a story. In a persuasion class, not this one, an in-person one, I had 33 students, and we had a midterm assignment that was different than we have here. And in that midterm assignment, they were asked to write about something, and I had a prompt, right? 17 students wrote about the same topic, which is bizarre. There's no way 17 students would come up with this same exact topic, which was a bit obscure. 10 of them had a different but the same topic, which would be really odd that those 10 people found it, right? So there was a vast majority of the class covered 2 topics. Why was that? It's because they all went to AI, some totally legit, where they were just like researching and they submitted an authentic, insightful paper that was a reflection of their own experiences and knowledge. Some were a complete, use of AI where it was complete cheating. But the thing is you have to realize that if you're going AI and you're asking it to give you an idea for something, so are 20 other people. So you got to say, oh, you know what? Maybe 20 other people are going to submit the same thing. All right. So now let's take it back to our module 4. I had a lot of submissions that had the very same topic, which was not bad. It was kind of applied to, uh, probably to, the common age demographics of this student body here. But some of them were verbatim, word for word, the same thing. So not only did a lot of people tend to use AI to get their topic idea, what they did is they went and just had it AI do it, altogether. All right. So with that said, is use AI, go forth, be bold, but don't be lazy. And remember that if you're going to look up something in AI, 20 other people might too, and you're all submitting the same thing. You're going to have to force yourself to go a bit deeper. If anybody has any AI questions on how to use it, how not to use it, just reach out to me and I will help. Hey, several of you had referenced commitment and consistency using an example that was in the slide deck, in the one that was from, I think, 2017. And that was an original part of this class that was created. And it is using it incorrectly when it talks about specifically the airline points and the rewards. So I want to talk about two elements of that. Next, we're going to talk about commitment and consistency, the actual principle, and I'll give you a quick, powerful lesson on what it is and how to use it. But first, this slide got it wrong, and so in that slide, I can't remember who created it. In the slide, it's a common misconception. So there's a couple things here. If you use AI for several principles of persuasion, AI is going to either flatten it at best, or it's going to be completely wrong, right? It just doesn't get these right. Maybe it will in 2 months, 6 months, right? That's how quick AI changes. But right now, it just consistently gets a lot of these things wrong. So AI got it wrong, right? You didn't read in the book or my other slides about it, right? So you weren't able to identify that it was wrong. However, it was legitimately in a slide. So if you were one of those people, reach out to me and let me know, and we'll make adjustments. However, I'm going to point out in a minute what commitment and consistency is. I just want to point out what it is not referred to that slide. So commitment and consistency is not joining a rewards program, because joining a rewards program, the act of joining it has nothing to do with commitment and consistency. The act of leaving it has nothing to do with commitment and consistency. However, that's the part that some people got stuck up on. And that's more of what's called loss aversion, where our desire to not lose, right, is greater than our desire to gain. So there was a great study where at the flip of a coin, you could decide if you want to win $150, but if you get it wrong, you lose $100. So your gain is greater, 150, your loss is 100. By far, most people chose that they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to risk the loss, because that feeling of loss is greater for us. So when it comes to airline miles or Starbucks reward or something, the act of losing those and moving to some other airline or something like that is greater than whatever we might gain from using the points that we would gather. And so that's loss aversion. Another thing related to that would be the endowment effect, which is once we own something, we assign a greater value to it. So something we think might be worth $5 or something like that, but the moment we own it, we think it's worth more, right? That's the endowment effect. And this can be used like at a car dealership, right? If you give somebody a car and have a test drive, right? They have a sense of endowment. They own it. They feel like they own it. They can imagine own it. Give them the car overnight even strengthens that. And what happens is now they're reframed and they're looking at it in a manner of them being owner. It has ownership. It has a greater value than it did when it was just an item on the shelf. All right, so now we'll get into commitment and consistency. What is commitment and consistency? All right, let's start with a quick little scenario. You have been asked to raise money for the Tempe Animal Shelter. And so you're walking through campus and you're asking people, hey, would you donate $5 to the Tempe Animal Shelter, right? Meanwhile, at the same time, somebody else is on another side of campus, but they took this course. And so what they're doing is they're walking through campus and they're not asking, hey, would you donate $5? What they're asking is, hey, do you like puppies? And just about everybody says yes. If you said no, Don't let me know because it's going to be hard to grade you fairly if you're a puppy hater. All right. So everybody's going to say yes, just about. Right. And the moment that they say yes, they publicly committed to something. It's human nature. It's a psychological lever that can be pulled. We want to stay consistent with that commitment. Right. So the more public the statement of commitment is, the more powerful our desire to stay consistent with that, right? So it's called the foot in the door effect. That's just one element of commitment and consistency. So once you get someone to publicly commit to something, the more public, the more powerful. We have an urge to continue and stay consistent with that. Okay, so we talked just a second ago about airline rewards and Starbucks rewards kind of thing. Well, there is no real public commitment, right? Just signing up for a form is very, personal. There's no deep commitment to that. So that's why it doesn't really apply. We don't feel like we're being incongruent in our identity of who we are by not staying consistent by staying within that rewards program. That's why that does not apply. So this is really powerful. So I just gave the example of walking through campus donating puppy money, right? So the thing is that we want to remember is that you can sign a petition, you could write a statement, or you can declare your intentions. These are all ways that you commit to something, and it's really powerful. And you can use this in your everyday life, right? So read the book. Like I said, there's some really great stories on this that are interesting. There's another element to that. There's something called the sunken cost fallacy. Once we already put money into something, even though it might be wiser to stop and get out, we stay with it because we already put the money in. It's the same thing. What happens is once we publicly commit to something, it could be like fraternity hazing. Maybe you want to get out, you don't want to do it, but once you've already committed and you started it, it's like, well, I already started doing this, right? And the urge to stay consistent with that very public commitment, right, is great. And so that is commitment and consistency in a nutshell. But there's quite a more depth to it and a lot of ways that you can apply it to life. So read the content.